did real things, lived a real life, was born of a real virgin, died a real death by crucifixion. What's your opinion on Nietzsche? We'll come to Nietzsche, okay? But the point is, that person in history is the touchstone upon which everything else is built. The Enlightenment, actually, it says in Scripture that wisdom is known by her children. The Enlightenment is leading to the death of Western civilization. Western civilization is dying because it's spiritually starved. It obsesses about the material, about the scientific, about what we can do because we have the technology to do it. And Western people have stopped feeding their souls so much that they look up to the people that appear. What's that program? Only Way is Essex. That they look up to those. I'm glad I don't know the name of that program. Yeah, they look up to. They look up to. Sorry for the slap down. Sorry for the slap. Yeah, but the point is, in the West we glorify these celebrities rather than glorify people who have achieved great things like St. Francis. So now you came to Nietzsche. It's a great question. I've lectured on Nietzsche. Okay, I've been barred from universities for talking about Nietzsche. But Nietzsche basically, he understood the full cataclysm of what it meant to say that God is dead. He didn't say that in celebration. He said that in tragedy. He said that in mourning. He said that in despair. God is dead. Now, up has become down, black has become white, everything has disappeared. We neither know whether we're rising or falling. I'm not quoting Nietzsche ad verbatim, but I'm giving a paraphrase of something that he said. The death of God was something that Nietzsche said would lead to the last man. And the last man, he said, was the kind of man that would look up at the wonder of the stars and simply blink. Meaning that the last man would be so dearth within his soul, so empty, so vacuous of all meaning, that he would see the wonders of the cosmos and not be moved by it. And Nietzsche said that the only way that we could overcome this abyss that we are going to fall into is by the rising of the Übermensch. The Übermensch is the great man that constructs his own meaning. He is the champion, the hero that triumphs over the meaningless of the cosmos by building his own meaning. But here's the problem.
How is that in line with the church?
Here's the problem. Is that when we look around for the Übermensch, when we look around for that Superman, who are the only candidates? The only candidates that stand tall over civilizations are religious figures. Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus Christ. Now, the question is, when we look at those figures, who is the champion that stands tallest over all of those? Buddhism is a religion that fundamentally, even the Buddhists admit, that their texts don't go back to the Buddha. I've been to Japan. I don't know if you've ever been to a Buddhist country.
No.
But 1,000,001 sects of Buddhism argue over what the Buddha's teachings are. 1,000,000 sects over Christianity don't argue over what Jesus' teachings are. They argue about how to construct the church in his name. Islam asks you to follow a paedophile rapist who allowed his followers to rape, pillage and rob. Islam is a religion that, when it is implemented, would treat me as a second-class citizen just because I'm a Christian. Would treat a Jew as a second-class citizen just because they're a Jew. And if, hypothetically, God forbid this sister was ever a Muslim, would treat her as a second-class citizen because she's a woman, and would kill you outright because you're none of the above.
There's still this kind of, I don't know if metaphysical is the right word, but there's basically this leap, I don't want to get too far. There's basically this seeming leap effect from, I guess, where my position is. to jump to and accept wholly the principles, I suppose, that guided the prophecies of Judaism that you have to enter into before you become a Christian. Because the Messiah. Does that make sense?
What do you mean by the prophecies of Judaism?
The prophecies.
The prophecies of Judaism. Well, I mean, the prophecies of Judaism are simply a test. You look at the prophecies, then you look at the life of Jesus. I mean, we could do one right now if you wanted. Yeah? Okay. So let's get that. My point to you is that if these prophecies are true, then you have a evidence to the truth of the Christian faith. But I just want to finish my thought on my last point. Because Jesus Christ calls us to live the kind of life that establishes the full beauty of the human soul. He calls us to live a life that is based upon love, truth, hope. He calls us to live by faith.
This umbrella over his cover.
When we live by these axioms, it draws out of the human being all that is best about his nature, all that is the image of God within his nature is drawn out when we live by these axioms. So we live the best kind of life. So nature was looking for an Übermensch. And I'm saying to you that the Übermensch that Nietzsche was looking for was Jesus Christ.
Then why did he not find it in Jesus Christ?
Because all he could see was the weakness of the church. That's all he could see. He was disgusted, as I am disgusted, by the cultural civility and passionless and empty, vacuous ritual of Christendom. That's what he was horrified by. He was not horrified by Jesus Christ. I don't believe he ever really considered Jesus Christ. But let's come to one of these prophecies. Okay? In Isaiah 53, okay, we have a description of our Lord Jesus Christ. Okay? So it's quite a long passage. Yeah? So stop me as we need to, and I'll interject as I need to. So in Isaiah 53, now, do you know when Isaiah 53 was written? It was written approximately, if I get my memory correct, 600 years before Jesus' birth. Okay. This is what it says. Who has believed our message? Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a tender shoot and like a root out of parched ground. He has no stately form or majesty that we should look upon him, nor appearance that we should be attracted to him. He was despised and forsaken of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And like one with whom men hide their face, he was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried, yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced through for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening of our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. All of us like sheep have gone astray, each of us has turned to his own way, but the Lord has caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. Now let's just pause a minute. When you look, bear in mind that this was written 600 years before Jesus Christ. When you look at the portraits that are portrayed in the four Gospels of Jesus, we see a man, a rabbi, who said that he didn't have a roof to shelter under, that he slept with the foxes and the birds in the holes in the ground. He was someone who was often chased out of areas, he was beaten, people wanted to stone him. He had followers. He was someone who performed miracles, but then people would follow him, not because they wanted to follow his teaching, but just because they wanted bread to eat. People looked at Christ in the wrong way. There was nothing about him that attracted us to him. He wasn't born to a royal family. He wasn't born to a regalious standing. He wasn't born in a palace. He was a peasant rabbi preacher.
Okay. So hold on. So first, this kind of goes into the exorcism commanded? Because I suppose, why is it then that the Catholic Church holds to such a high standard the way it builds its churches, for instance, whereas the Protestant churches I've seen don't? Because if Christ rejects these notions of, shall we say, grandiosity, then why is it the churches are built like the Hagia Sophia, for instance, to reflect grandiosity over celebration?
Okay, so I want to, because I don't think you're tracking with what I'm saying about the prophecies. So I'm going to address your question, but I want to finish what I'm talking about in terms of the prophecies. So we've got a man who lived, who had this life that had nothing to draw people to him, and very often people were drawn to him for the wrong reasons. Okay, he had times when his followers just left him, when he preached something that was too hard for them to swallow. And then, at the end of his life, he was scourged and whipped and beaten because of false accusations that were made against him. And he was crucified on a tree. Now, in Jewish custom, Jewish law, their understanding was that if you were hung on a tree, you were accursed of God. Now, bearing in mind, what did the prophecy say? It said that he was despised and forsaken of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and like one from whom men hide their face, he was despised and we did not esteem him. Surely our griefs he himself bore and our sorrows he carried, yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. So Christ was crucified, and the Jewish people saw that as, oh, God has cursed you. Right. But yet, at that moment, because remember, we started this conversation talking about historicity, the historicity of Herodotus, and in Christian historicity, the idea of salvific history. Which I argue to you, the only way that we can truly understand our world is with the help of revelation. We've got a reason from revelation, if you remember what I'm saying. Yeah? Not, we can't just construct it ourselves because we're incapable of seeing the world for what it truly is. So Christ, at that moment when he was being crucified, God was fulfilling all of the prophecies that he had planted in the corporate memory of Israel to be fulfilled in Jesus Christ. He was redeeming the world. He was opening up the opportunity that some lost sheep like you, who has gone astray, because what does it say in Scripture? It says, but he was pierced, the chastening of our well-being, for your scourging we are healed. All of us like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way. That a lost sheep like you can find the shepherd, the Übermensch, the one that Nietzsche was desperately searching for, but couldn't find in the church. Now, you asked the question. I haven't forgotten.
Can we park my earlier question for a moment?
Yeah.
Last passage you just read. Sorry, my memory's terrible. Last passage you just read. Why is it then that there were lost sheep in your mind at that stage of humanity?
Yeah, there's lost sheep in every age of humanity. That this is the true salvific. The salvific reading of history is the only way to read it. Because the point of a human being is that our telos is to be pointed towards God. The purpose of our lives is to be pointed towards God. And the thing is, because of the sinful nature, because of our entrapment to the flesh and the desires of the flesh, and because of our barrage of being soaked in the world and all of its ways, we lose sight that beyond the great hymn of all of creation is hymning to the fact that beneath it all there is this great grounding of truth that is the Creator. And if there is a Creator, we should direct our lives towards Him. And if you accept that we should direct our lives towards Him, then we need to find His light.
We need to find that point of reference by which we can coordinate ourselves in his direction. So the lost sheep is in every age, but Jesus is that light. He is the one that we can find truth in, that we can find God through.